This Econ Line lesson is going to be about the loanable funds market. This is a concept that comes up a lot in a resource market unit in microeconomics, and then comes up a lot in macroeconomics, in particular in a macroeconomic indicators unit, and then often as we start to talk about real GDP, fiscal policy, and so on. So there's a lot to know about this, and we're going to learn about the loanable funds market in detail, in part because we need to be able to distinguish it from some other markets we'll encounter as well. So just taking a look, the first thing I want to do is distinguish or define what the loanable funds market is. So the loanable funds market is the market for funds in the economy that can be loaned. So there's lots of money in the economy, but not all of that money is available to be loaned or borrowed and so on. So we're only talking about the kind of money that's available for that sort of thing. So who makes up this market? Well, first of all, where would the money that people borrow come from? Well, the supply of loanable funds comes from savers. So when you go to the bank and you put money in the bank account, that money is loaned out by the bank to other people. So savers, and mostly here we're talking about consumers, and there could be other people, other entities involved. But for the most part, we're talking about people put their money in a bank, and that money is loaned out to other people. So who is demand in this case? Well, demand is mostly consumers and investors. So we have individual people who are borrowing money, and then we have businesses that are also borrowing money for business purposes. Later on, we're going to look at the government as a potential borrower as well, but at this point, let's just keep it simple by saying that in the private market, we're looking at individual savings and then also demand coming from people who want to borrow money. And again, consumers borrow money for houses, cars, college educations, things like that. All right, so this is basically the market as is, or the people involved in the market. So how do we label these axes or label what's going on here? Well, ultimately, when we loan money, we charge interest. So interest is the price of money. And usually we would make that a little more specific and say the price of using money, or the price of loaning money, or I should say the benefit to loaning money. So when you borrow money, when you pay that money back, usually you pay back more than you borrowed, and that difference is called interest. So the interest rate is the rate charged to somebody who wants to borrow money. So it would stand to reason then that since interest is a price, just like any other price, it rations out the loanable funds from those people who are savers to those people who are borrowers. So we use the price mechanism for all of this. So interest is the price of money, but there are different kinds of interest rates in the economy. And the interest rate that we're going to deal with here is called the real interest rate. And the real interest rate basically means we've taken, in determining that interest rate, we've taken account for inflation. So a banker knows if they were going to loan you money for your college education, that in the time it takes you to pay that money back, that the value of money is going to change a little bit. So they account for that when they make the loan in the first place. So you can write real interest rate, or you could also write lowercase r for the label here. And then, as is always the case in economics, you could just write price of loanable funds. Now, I strongly recommend that anytime you get into an exam situation and you're not sure what to do, because, and this includes the AP exam, price of loanable funds is an acceptable label for this graph. So we can use that as well. All right, so we have the real interest rate, and then we have the quantity of funds borrowed, so that's just going to be quantity of loanable funds. If there is something happens in the economy that causes people to demand more loanable funds, then you would see an increase in the demand for loanable funds, which would cause the real interest rate to rise. And again, that would make sense. Correct ceteris paribus would tell us that if more people demanded loanable funds, then the value of those loanable funds would go up. And the same thing would happen with a decrease in demand or an decrease in supply. It works just like a regular market. So basically, that's the summary for loanable funds and what you need to know about it in a basic economics course.